Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've all had some lunch because this session might become a little bit mind-blowing. Before we dive in, I want you all to imagine a future where humans are on our way to Mars, we're living on the moon, we have set up a full-scale infrastructure, we've solved multiple technological challenges within everything from healthcare to food to supply chains. And all those technological breakthroughs, they haven't stayed in space. They've also transformed entire markets here on Earth. Well, today we're going to explore how close we are to making some of this a reality and how close we are to making space more accessible. And we're going to explore what that means for businesses and investors outside the traditional space sector. We'll talk about how the next decade of space innovation could impact markets here on Earth and create opportunities within many different industries. And to help us explore these opportunities, I have this incredible panel on stage. Please welcome Dr. Christyl Johnson from NASA's Space Technology Mission Directorate, and you play a central role in driving forward NASA's technology strategy. On stage with us, we also have Dr. Stefan Gustafsson from the European Space Agency. As the commercialization officer, you are very connected in fostering space-connected startups across Europe. And then lastly, to represent the entrepreneurial perspective, we have Filip Cedell, CEO of Pythom Space Sweden, an ambitious startup currently working on building the Nordics' first orbital rocket and eventually a full-scale space transportation system. And my name is Kathrine Boysen. I work at ESA Business Incubation Center, based out at Denmark's Technical University. Well, so please welcome the panelists. So I want to start with the big picture. It is a space panel after all. Christyl, from your perspective, what is the biggest challenge driving the industry forward right now?
Well, for us, the biggest challenge is having a sustainable human presence on the moon and then going on to Mars. We have an objective to get there by 2040, and that means we got to think about everything differently today.
Yeah. And why such strong focus on returning to the moon right now?
Oh, okay. So we are in another space race. And it's very, very important for us to make sure that the global unit, we have the Artemis program, which is a program that is signed on by 56 countries. All 56 countries have signed to go together through the Artemis Accords for us to be able to go to the moon so that we can test out technologies and capabilities to get ready to go to our ultimate destination, which is Mars. And in order for us to be able to do this, we need to make sure that we're doing it because the nations that did not sign the Artemis Accords, I'm sure you know which nations they are, only 2, but one of those nations is moving very, very fast. And they are moving faster than we are in the United States and Europe. So Europe and the United States really must come together, and we must take advantage of all of the ideas and the capabilities and the technologies, especially those ones that don't consider themselves space companies, because we need those in order for us to be able to realize the vision that we've got. And it's important because we don't have much time. If that country has dominion in space, you can imagine they would never have to shoot missiles again because they can do things from space that make those nations implode upon themselves, and we can talk about that more later.
Okay, very interesting. And now turning to Europe, Stefan. As the European Space Agency's commercialization officers, you are working so closely with many startups and innovators across Europe who are exploring how space could benefit their business. So from ESA's perspective and from your perspective at ESA, what key developments do you see driving growth in Europe's space economy?
Yeah, thank you, Kathrine. Firstly, looking back when I started working with startups, where my big dream was to involve many more of them in the space economy. And that has, in a way, been fulfilled. There are much more room for startups now, many more innovations, and innovations on its own helps driving growth. So that's great to see. And the good message is there's room for many more ideas. We need ideas from everywhere to help our efforts in space. But of course there are some tendencies globally, because this is a global business. We can never look at Europe alone. And is my mic working?
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. One of them, also from a startup not such a long time ago, is SpaceX in the US. SpaceX is able to drastically lower the prices for launching things into space, and it opens up for new opportunities. Instead of doing only experiments in space, we could produce things in space, produce things which are easier to produce, better to produce in a microgravity environment, as we call it. And also Starlink, from the same founder, will revolutionize satellite communication, driving down prices, increased capacity, which again opens up for many, many new applications using broadband internet wherever we are on Earth, on the water, or in the air. So that's just an example of disruptions, innovations, how it can disrupt the space economy. Two other very important trends we see, it's related to security and defense. I expect lots of funding be available on relatively short term. And here we need to ensure that we have the infrastructure we need in space for resilience society. And of course also sustainability. Again, since quite some time, massive efforts, and here is a very clear role for space, both to understand how is climate changing, what is happening on Earth, and also to help us providing solutions for this.
Very interesting. Is there any, very quickly, just before we move on to Filip, is there any strategically important opportunities for European startups right now?
Yeah, looking at these mega trends, I think the best opportunities are really related to providing solutions. Solutions for European own access to space, solutions to tackle our big challenges on Earth. And I also see another opportunity here, because normally when we look at this, we start with looking kind of what kind of products do we want, what technologies do we need, but that's very short-sighted. We also, like NASA is doing, need to look at kind of what are the problem areas for the future we need to address. But I would like to go even one step further to look at what kind of innovation ecosystem do we need in the future. And I know you're very good at this in Denmark, with involving both universities, research centers, startups, corporates, everybody. And we need to do this now on a European and on a global scale to build the ecosystem that feeds the innovation we need.
Amazing. And Filip, now we're hearing Stefan mentioning the European capabilities we need to build within launching things into space. That's exactly what you guys are working on over in Pythom Space. As mentioned before, you are the CEO of Pythom Space in Sweden, and you're working on building the Nordics' first orbital rocket. Why did Pythom Space take on that challenge?
Yeah, good question. It all started about 5 years ago in California, with the goal of taking in the entirety of humanity out into space, not just governments, not just billionaires, but everyday people like every one of us here. And that's the reason why we actually started building actually not only the Nordics first, but also the world's cheapest rocket, so that everyone will be able to afford to go into space and to participate in this new, very exciting space economy we're building right now.
Yeah.
And what role does lowering the launch cost play in terms of creating access and unlocking all these commercial opportunities that are waiting out there for us?
It plays a huge role. I mean, all technical revolutions are driven by lowering costs. So if you, for example, take a look at the internet, the personal computer, or even the car, if they were very much more expensive than they are today, we would see much less of them in the world. And I think in space it's even more important to drive down costs. If we look at SpaceX, the only reason why they have won the entire launch market, and I mean the entire launch market, is just because of one reason. It's because they have lowered the actual launch cost to get stuff up into space. It's really that simple.
Okay. Well, so as we see access to space improve and as we start preparing for going to the moon and eventually to Mars, we will see some ripple effects from all these innovations that will affect markets here on Earth. So I'd like to try and look a little bit into the crystal ball and look forward into the next decade, because I think many of the people in the audience are interested to know, is this all science fiction or are we actually getting closer? And which opportunities are we excited to see on a little bit more short term, let's say a decade? Yeah, Christyl.
So I'm very excited about some potential opportunities, again, in areas that are not space, what considered to be space. If you think about the AR, VR, and AI communities coming together, our trip from Earth to Mars is going to take us 9 months to get there. So imagine being in a vehicle for 9 months with no sunlight. That means no day and night cycle. That means your circadian rhythm is going to go crazy. So we've got to figure out a way for the people that are traveling to be able to go from your sleeping quarters into a holodeck of sorts, where you can actually go in and we're no longer using goggles, and three-dimensional things and a flat screen. You need to be able to take the game, work with the gaming community and the AI community to be able to now have beyond extended virtual and virtual reality. So you can walk in a completely immersed environment where you feel like you're actually basking in the sun. And you've got to figure out a way to also infuse the vitamin D, because your body is really intelligent. It will know if you're not truly basking in the sun. And so that's one particular thing. But then also in medicine, when you go to Mars, you're not going to be able to take MRI machines with you. So we've got to come up with very, very special medical sensors that you can place on or about the body, pull the heart out of the body virtually, be able to spin it around and peel it open so you can see where a block of a vein or vessel is, a blockage, so that you can take then the robotic capability, not the Da Vinci machines you see in the hospitals today, but have the robotic capability to go in and remove that blockage without human intervention. And we're also going to need to make sure that all of the communities that are working on digital twins now for facilities and for machinery and everything else, we've got to have digital twins of human beings. So each human being, before you go on this long journey, we have a total map of your body, all the way down to your cellular genotype. And if you have a cancer cell or something like that, we can actually work on your digital twin here on Earth, be able to determine exactly what kind of treatment needs to be happening to address that particular cell, and then send that information up so that they know how to fix your specific problem based upon your specific genotype. So all of these advances that we have to make for Mars are going to make revolutionary changes here. For that virtual environment I talked about, imagine what it's going to do to the television market in just 2 years. If we're investing in those kind of technologies today, and you're able to project yourself to the sideline for a football game, and the person is coming off the sideline and you're able to be right here listening to the conversation, or in American football, project yourself to the end zone, and you can see if his knee went down before the ball went over the goal line. And it's going to change the movie-going environment too. Seeing something like Avatar 2, and you're actually able to kind of be in without having to wear the goggles, the 3D goggles.
Yep.
So many changes are going to be, and that's only in 3 categories.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
It sounds almost too good to be true, but we have very capable entrepreneurs out there in the audience, so we hope you will fix that. Filip, I want to ask you next, because also thinking about the commercial opportunities that are waiting out there once we solve lowering the launch cost and getting better access. What are you excited about in terms of commercial opportunities in space?
I'm excited about a lot of stuff, but one of the things I'm most excited about are actually putting data centers into space. And there are really 3 big issues with the data centers today. Number 1, they consume lots of energy. Number 2, they take up a load of land mass. And number 3, they require a lot of water to actually cool these systems. And all these three things are things we can actually solve in space. If we start with energy, for example, we can see that people today are planning these 10 gigawatt AI data centers, and that's the equivalent to the output of 10 nuclear power plants. So it's simply not sustainable to build these on Earth. What you could do instead is put them in space where you have an abundance of solar power, and you have basically, it's more effective than on Earth because you have almost 24/7 sunlight, and you also don't have an atmosphere. And then if you look at the landmass issue, you can just see that, for example, Meta, a company today, is planning to build a data center the size of Manhattan in New York City. And just imagine getting the permit to get that done, and also the cost of acquiring all that land. In space, you basically have unlimited free real estate to put stuff up there.
Wow.
And then 3, you have the environmental issue with all of the water cooling, which is a big issue today. In space, you can use the actual vacuum, the cold vacuum, as radiation cooling. So these are all things that can be solved in space once we actually get the launch cost down, which is the most important thing, going back to costs again. We can save the planet if we actually put stuff into space, but then we also have to get down the costs. So just one example for when it's actually already up in space. There are recent predictions that operating costs for running a data center can be 97% lower compared to having them on terrestrial ground. And of course, you have way lower, like we're talking magnitudes lower of emissions from that as well. So that's very exciting.
So we're not just going to space because it's for exploration. It is really hardcore commercial opportunities that are waiting out there.
It is,
what I'm hearing from you.
and data centers are just one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see space pharma manufacturing new medicines in space where you don't have gravity pulling down on the crystals. So you can have medicines with stronger formations creating all new characteristics, and even semiconductor crystals that are up to 50 times more efficient than they are here on Earth.
Yeah. All right, very exciting stuff as well. And Stefan, I know you have an opinion as well to remember that it's not all about the things we're sending into space necessarily. It's also about how we think of using the data from space here on Earth.
I would like to take space down to Earth, where it really belongs. When going here, I guess many of you also used your mobile phone to help you find the way. Maybe, a few people nodding. How many of you needed space to find your way to go here? Yeah, several of you, unless you knew where Bella Center and the metro line is in advance, of course. And it has become so integrated in our life, we do not even think about it, that this mobile phone takes signals from navigation satellites, calculates your position, the quicker then you can say navigation satellite, and helps you finding the way. And we have many, many more examples where space is part of our life, so integrated that. But it would be noticeable if it wouldn't work anymore. Yeah. We couldn't make any bank transactions. The mobile phone would not be able to tell where you are. A lot of things would stop. No aircraft flying, no ships docking, and so on. And I also expect that this is the area where the most innovations will take place in the future. The space economy now, valued at roughly $500 billion, is for more than 80% what we call downstream. That's the services related to Earth observation, satellite navigation, satellite communication, and the navigation part of it is about half of this, 250 millions, where I think the benefits for society, they are magnitudes larger. So it's only the business value, right? What services and hardware is being manufactured and sold. So that's very important to remember. I also think that many opportunities are connected to other technologies, like you mentioned, AI. In the past, when you started dealing with Earth observation data, it was impossible if you didn't have the right knowledge, skill, training, and so on. But now, many companies use AI for this. And while still you need how to deal with it, of course, it lowers the barriers drastically so that many, many more can deal with Earth observation data and use it really for interesting and valuable purposes than it was in the past. looking then on what we call upstream, doing in space, I think there will also be opportunities. Many of them will be related to our European position, of course. We also need to make sure that we get competitive companies, competitive solutions, so that it's not only SpaceX which can launch cheaply to space. We need to be able to launch cheaply to space also from Europe with the European actors. Monopoly is never good for innovation. And also there are some areas we are very good at in Europe, like production and building machines for producing things. We export these machines to the rest of the world, where they build a lot of other stuff, like cars, which we buy back then. And why not using these machines to build the satellites, to build the launchers, sometimes in large numbers, sometimes custom made, what we needed at the time we need it, and so on.
Yeah, super interesting as well. So we really have a lot of commercial opportunities waiting for us, both out there in space, but also here on Earth, in terms of capitalizing on all this data we are getting down. So the last theme of this debate is to try and investigate how entrepreneurs from non-space sectors can engage. The question might not just be what's possible, but where do you start? How do you get engaged if you are from one of these non-space industries or more traditional sectors here on Earth, wanting to capitalize on all these opportunities? And maybe I'll start with you, Christyl, to hear how can startups or university students or bright minds also from Europe get involved and be part of the work that you're doing at NASA?
Yeah. So we realized at NASA that this is something that we've got to tap into every kind of network of innovation that we possibly can. So I created what we call NextExplore 2040. That's the nexus of exploration, the hub of exploration. So all of the different disciplines coming together to help us get to our 2040 goal, having humans live on the moon by 2040. This NextExplore program, this first one, is targeted at universities, because universities have some great innovation hubs, and they've got some great innovative minds that if you give them a challenge, and I'm talking focused challenges, my organization has published 187 technology shortfalls. These are 187 areas that nobody in any of the 56 countries that have signed on to the Artemis Accords have gotten their arms around yet. None of us have a solution, and we're waiting for people to invest in those technologies and demonstrate them so that we can make this a reality. So for the NextExplore Challenge, we said, okay, universities, we picked 4 topics. We want you to give us your ideas and solutions for these 4 topic areas. It must require a cross-disciplinary proposal. So your engineering school has to partner with the business school, which has to partner with the arts department or med school, whatever the topics are, because not only does it have to be technically solid and viable, but it also has to close a business case and be presented in such a way by your arts department so that the investment community will find it attractive enough for them to invest in it. Because the winner gets up to $2 million to start building that concept into something that is a viable thing so that you can build a company to provide that capability back. And that's something that we're piloting in the US, September 9th through the 11th. We've already had universities to propose to that. But Hamburg, Germany has lobbied for us to have it in Hamburg in 2027. We're going to be in Scotland, in Edinburgh at another time, and the UK, and hopefully here, so that we can tap into the university ecosystem here. We've been having some conversations about how we can work together, ESA and NASA, to be able to support these kind of endeavors. That's focused on universities, but we can do the same thing for startup, companies. If there are companies out there that have an idea towards any of the 187 technologies, let's get those ideas on the table and then have the private money coming together, private investors, family offices, endowment funds at universities, to be able to fund those companies to be able to accelerate. Because we've got to move fast. We really have to move a lot faster than we are today.
I think that program also really well illustrate how you are expecting engineers to come together with business competencies and people from the business industry, art departments. We need all of those competencies to work together to solve the challenges we have in space.
Yeah, so the group before this was talking about not having money in Europe to develop some of the companies and the technologies that we need for space. That is why we've all got to come together, because there is a lot of money out there. And so for us to be able to target those investment pools and focus it on the companies that can help us get there faster, we've got to be able to work together to do that, to bring the resources where the solutions lie.
Amazing. Before we move on to hear from you, Stefan, I just want to remind the audience that we will have a few minutes for questions by the end of this debate, so please use the QR code if you have a question for the panel. Stefan, how does ESA and the European Space Agency support startups across Europe? If there's anyone in the audience from a non-space sector thinking, I'm wondering if space is for me, how can ESA support in helping them into that journey?
Thank you. First, Christyl, I couldn't agree with you more. So everybody, take that to your heart. It's so important what you are saying. And we definitely need to tap into potential everywhere in society. At ESA, we try to do, well, everywhere is impossible. That is a big challenge. Reaching out to the non-space minded, those to be space minded. A quick check with you. How many of you work somehow with space in the one way or other?
Okay, too many.
So that's a good community here. Check the people raising the hands, go speaking to them, or speak to Kathrine, or speak to our ESA Business Incubation Center booth, a little bit 50 meters in that direction. In Europe, we started 20 years ago building up a network of ESA business incubation centers. We are present at about 100 locations in Europe so far. We have helped supporting more than, or around 2,000 companies. I hope we will reach 2,000 this quarter. So that's quite a good number of startups who have passed through our system. And they are there to help not only startups, to have everybody with ideas or with an interest in doing something with space, because it's an ecosystem that we build together. So even if you do not intend to start your company, but you would like to be part of this ecosystem, make yourself known and try to be an ambassador for space. And we're quite fortunate because space creates a lot of interest, imagination. You just have to tell some stories, show some pictures, and everybody is hooked on it. And many other sectors, they envy us because we have an easy job in this way, but we do not make use of this potential so well. Also, we have other mechanisms at ESA. If you have great ideas, or you have ideas and you want to know if it is a great idea, we have an open space innovation portal. You can supply the idea there. ESA will make an evaluation. And we have many other programs for more mature companies as well. I will not go into them here. But the starting point is the booth here in that direction.
Thank you, Stefan. And then last question for the panel today. Filip, what's your message for entrepreneurs out here in the audience who might wonder, is space really a market for them?
Yeah, I mean, I agree what you guys are saying. It's important for everyone to get involved, because if you look at the two most successful space companies in the world, we see SpaceX and Rocket Lab. Both of them were founded by people with no space experience whatsoever. And I would perhaps even argue that that's exactly what you need in order to succeed in the space industry.
And do you have any piece of advice you want to follow up with as a last coming to the audience?
Yeah, I would say start small and try to scale your space startup like any other company out there. If you look at the world's most successful companies, most of them were actually started in garages around the world. And I think the next billion-dollar space company will be no different from that. And I think we should all remember that space is an engineering problem like anything else out there. It's truly not that special. I mean, we've heard the saying that something is rocket science. And we actually have a saying at our rocket shops in the USA and Sweden that rocket science isn't rocket science.
And on that note, I think it's a good way to end this panel discussion. We do still have 5 minutes for a few questions from the audience. And I think there is some quite interesting ones coming in here. There is someone asking, what do we need to build a European equivalent to SpaceX?
Yeah, maybe I can go first. That's what we're trying to do. So I think from my perspective, I see what the governments are trying to do, and I have a strong opinion that the next SpaceX will be commercially driven. I don't think politicians should be the one picking which startup that's going to be successful, which is kind of what we see. No knock on ESA too much, but I mean they're choosing certain companies they like and giving lots of money to them and inflating the commercial market so that spaceports become very expensive for everyone else. I think the true thing, they should do a bit more like NASA did with SpaceX. You guys gave incentives by offering contracts to SpaceX for building Falcon 9. I think we should do the same in Europe and not try to inflate the market with politicians and paperwork, and really try to make licensing easier. I mean, if you look at China, which we were talking a little bit about here, it takes 3 months to get a launch license there, but in the USA and in Europe, it takes about 1.5 years. And that's maybe the reason why we have 17 companies in China who have launched to space and 0 in Europe.
You know, I'd like to just add one thing. The piece of advice that he gave about startups and what do people need to do here, the advice, I would say also don't feel like you just have to do it alone. You know, you have to do it by yourself and you have to keep everything quiet and not bring in experts. I don't know what kind of infrastructure you have set up here, but from my perspective, we have a lot of experience in NASA. And many companies come to us and say, hey, I'm trying to do X. Do you have an expert that can give me some advice in Y? NASA doesn't charge any money for any of that, no advice whatsoever. So I am constantly doing assessments of technologies, assessments of capabilities, and making determinations because I invest in a lot of technologies every single year, and I do assessments on those technologies every single year for NASA. So if you have ideas and you all don't have something set up, maybe have something set up. Maybe we can work together because we have to, again, do this fast. Great ideas. I would love to take a look at some of those things, make assessments, and if we can invest in it, then that's going to make things go a whole lot faster.
Stefan, do you have a last comment on that?
What I tell my colleagues is we need to do more of procurement, actually buying things, testing things, breaking them also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Europe, we typically want everything to work when we put it in place, but there are so many things which can go wrong, and we need to learn from this progress when things go wrong. And by actually buying things and being a very critical customers, we give the opportunity to the industry to do the things they are really good at.
Yeah.
And they learn, and we learn, and would be much better in putting actual things into place that in the end work and takes us forward. And it's not only about launchers, it is about everything, both going into space and on Earth. Buy it, test it, break it, and do it until you have what you want.
Great.
Let the entrepreneurs find the problem, create the solution, and let the governments buy the solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
We want to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question. There was a great question up here just before that I can't see, but I think you should have the chance to answer this, Dr. Johnson. Why Mars?
So many people don't know that Mars used to be very much like Earth. It's an analog to Earth. It used to have an environment. It used to have oceans, running water, active volcanoes, and all of that. But something drastic happened on Mars that changed it from an analog to Earth to this dry, barren desert of a planet. That's one of the reasons we have the rovers on the surface, excavating the soil so that we can understand what actually happened on Mars. We know that on Earth, we've already had a pretty catastrophic event with the dinosaurs. The ones in the air, the ones on the land, and the ones underwater all disappeared at the same time. So whatever happened there, that's the first step to whatever happened on Mars. If we see, so as we study and we start to understand what happened there, when we start seeing indications of that happening on Earth, that can give us a signal, a sign to say, okay, we have X amount of time to get humans from this planet to a planet that can sustain human life. And because Mars was an analog, we know it can sustain human life. We are, as we navigate the lava tubes, every time you have a volcanic eruption, the lava burrows a hole underground and creates lava tubes. It's filled with water and freezes, and we can actually explore and take that frozen ice and use it for water. Be done.
And with those words, you better get started. We have a lot of technological challenges to solve. Thank you so much for joining us, and
Absolutely.
thanks for listening in, everyone.
My pleasure.